Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. We are indeed thankful that Yah has spared our lives to be here this morning so we can look into his word and by way of wisdom, his wisdom in us, we'll better understand what he wants us to do. This morning we want to look at the 6 Day Prophetic War. The 6 Day Prophetic War. And some of you who are old enough will remember the 6 Day War in 1967 between Israel, Yisrael, and the Arab states. After years of diplomatic wrangling and wrestling, it came to the point where Israel felt threatened and made a preemptive strike and thereby struck Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. And that war, in spite of the fact that it was bloody and it was horrible, it only lasted 6 days. And so we recognize that the friction and the skirmishes of that situation still lingers. You can often smell the stench of that situation. And as the winter wind blew the other day in October chapter 7, October the 7th, we recognize that that was a new chapter in October of the war between Israel and the Arab states. And so as a consequence of that situation, Egypt staged a fright that didn't develop. But Israel preemptively struck and defeated them. And so we saw then that new areas, new territories were now under the control of Israel, one of them being the Gaza Strip. The Golanites, East Jerusalem. And so that feeling, those emotions of the Arab states did not dissipate at that time. They festered over time. And so that which broke out on October the 7th is really a prolonged festering of those feelings. But I'm not talking this morning about the 6 Day War in Israel. No, that was only a periscope to look at the 6 Day War that has been taking place ever since Adam sinned. Because Peter, in 2 Peter 3 and verse 8, Peter said, don't be ignorant of this one thing, because one terrestrial day is equal to 1,000 celestial years. And so the 6 Day War, the war of attrition, wherein the devil has been trying to wear out the saints of the Most High ever since the days of Adam, it's been 6 days almost. And that war is soon to come to an end. That war of attrition. And so this morning, we want to look at that 6 day or 6,000 years of war. So come with me to the book of Revelation, that book of Azon or Chizayon. And we're going to look at chapter 12. The word here declares that, and a great sign was seen in the Shemayim, that's the heavens, a woman clad with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And being pregnant, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth, this woman. And another sign was seen in the Shemayim, and see a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his heads. And his tail draws 1/3 of the stars of the Shemayim and throws them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she, the woman, bore a male child who was to shepherd all nations. How many nations? All nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught away to Elohim and to his throne. Let's read to verse 7. Verse 6 says, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by Elohim to be nourished there 1,260 days, that's years, and there came to be fighting in the Shemayim. There was war in heaven. Michael and his messengers fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his messengers fought. Well, verse 8 too, but they were not strong enough, nor was a place found for them in the Shemayim any longer. Please understand this. The word here, Yohanan is letting us know that the kingdom of Yah has declared war on the kingdom of Satan. War. There was war in heaven. Now, if your country declares war on another country, you are at war. You're at war. We need to understand that. You cannot claim to be a conscientious objector, whether by religion or otherwise. You cannot. If your country is at war, you are at war. And not to be at war when your country is at war, you could be called a traitor and charged for treason. You could. Your government, the kingdom of which we belong, is at war with Satan's kingdom. And so we need to understand that situation, that this war that started in Genesis, and let's go to Genesis. Genesis, that's Bereshit, chapter 3, and we will look at verse 15. Genesis chapter 3. The word here says, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, the same woman we read about in Revelation chapter 12, and between your seed and her seed. He shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel. Verse 16, to the woman he said, I greatly increase your sorrow and your conception. Did you get me? Bring forth children in pain, and your desire is for your husband, and he rules over you. So the woman here that we just read about in Revelation chapter 12, we know the woman is Israel, Yisrael. The woman is Israel. And the woman gave birth to a man-child. That man-child is Yeshua. That's the woman's seed that we just read here in Genesis 3 and verse 15. That's the seed. Now, Paul picks up this theme in Galatians 3:29, and Paul says, if you be in Yeshua, if you are a descendant of Yeshua by way of not necessarily natural birth, but by way of rebirth, you belong to Abraham. If you be in Yeshua. Now, my question is, how then can you claim to be a believer and say you're not an Israelite? It says the woman Israel who gave birth to the seed of which you are connected. You are a descendant of the son, the seed of the woman Israel, and you say you're not an Israelite, you're a Gentile. It doesn't make sense. You cannot be anything other than an Israelite. What do I mean? Well, let's look at Jacob. Jacob was born in Canaan, in the land of Canaan. So why was he not a Canaanite? Ephraim and Manasseh, the sons of Joseph, they were born in North Africa, in the land of Egypt. Why are they not Egyptians? Moses, was born in Egypt. Why then is not Moses an Egyptian? Why? Why? We have got to ask these questions. Why? Because being an Israelite is a prescription with a distinction that comes with a conviction. It's not enough to say you were born in Israel to be an Israelite. Because Paul tells us that he who is a Jew outwardly is not a Jew. So it is a distinction with a conviction. That's what makes you an Israelite. And it's an experience that you have to go through. You better ask Jacob. The word says, and Jacob wrestled all night with Yeshua. And after he overcame that situation, his name was changed to Israel. And so Yah has always had one group of people throughout history. Are you with me? I know the religion, and particularly in America here, the evangelicals, they have made, and with others, Israel a geopolitical item. Israel has never been a geopolitical entity, never. But they have made it that and tried to frame that situation that they have contrived by way of scripture, by saying, quoting from Genesis chapter 12, let's go there, Genesis chapter 12, and let's look at verse 3, 12 verse 3. It says that, and I shall barak those who barak you, speaking to Abraham. I will bless those who bless you, Abraham, and curse him who curses you, and in all the clans of the earth shall be barak, will be blessed. So they picked that out, and they have done not so much an exegesis of the word, they have done an eisegesis. They have read into the scriptures what is not there. So they say, if you bless Israel, Yah will bless you. So the conclusion of that is that they are saying America's own survival, its own existence, is contingent upon America giving support to Israel. That's how they have framed this situation. And I'm trying to say, he who is a Jew outwardly is not a Jew, says Paul. Why? Because being an Israelite is a prescription about a distinction that comes with a conviction. And how can you say that the Messiah has not yet come? You deny him and claim to be a child of Abraham, which clearly indicates that you're not in Yeshua. Therefore, Abraham is not your father. Yeshua had that conversation with them all the way back in John chapter 8, some time ago. He said, in fact, your father, you belong to your father, the devil. That's the word of Yah. And so let me also make this point, that Paul tells us that Satan is the prince of this world, is the prince of this world. And Paul also tells us in Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 12 that this war of attrition that you and I are fighting is such that we are fighting against principalities and powers in high places. Now, a principality is a territory or a jurisdiction that belongs to a prince. Are you with me? And therefore, because the prince of darkness is now ruling this world, he is ruling your municipality, your town, your city, your government. If they avail themselves to Satan, this prince of darkness is ruling them. So you can always tell whether a person's municipality is being controlled by the principality. You can always tell. By the fruits that they produce, you know, you can look at that man or that woman and you can declare and say, yes, their municipality is being controlled by the principality. Because the word is clear that there is war in heaven. And if you are at war in your country, you better know that you are at war. You cannot be a conscientious objector. You can't do that. And so we understand that this 6-day war has continued. But in our context, prophetically, it is 6,000 years. It's going on. And we now understand what Paul is saying. To come with me to Ephesians chapter 6. Because if you're at war, you must know how to dress. You don't wear a shirt and tie in war. You got to put on the right armor. You just have to dress right. And Paul here in Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 12, he says, because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against world rulers of darkness. Understand what I'm saying? Paul here in verse 12, he's saying the principalities have invaded the municipalities of your world leaders. He wants you to know that. He says, so you're not fighting against them who are in power on the earth. You are fighting against the principalities who influences those who are on earth. Their municipalities have been invaded by the principality, but you can't see it because he goes on to tell you. He said, you're not fighting against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of darkness of this age, against spiritual wickedness in the Shemai. You can't see them, they're invisible. They send their influence and they invade your land, but you can't see them. Therefore, you must dress correctly. Verse 13, because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim so that you have power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all, to stand. Stand then, having girded your loins with truth. Let's look at that. Paul says the first thing you put on is truth. Gird your loins. You can't be wearing the garment of truth if you tell me that Sunday is a seventh-day Sabbath. No, you can't. You can't be wearing the garment of truth if you tell me that the feast days that are specifically mentioned in Leviticus chapter 23 that they're done away with. If you say they're done away with, you are not dressed properly. You're naked. And because you're blind, you just can't see your own nakedness. You can't tell me that Easter has replaced Passover. You can't tell me that. That, again, is deliberate blindness. You can't tell me that Christmas is a gift to Yah. Are you with me? You remember when the Messiah is born and you call it Easter. And you remember what? You remember when he died and you call it Easter. And when he was born, you call it Christmas. That's the only time you remember the Messiah, his birth and his death. You don't remember that he's grown up. You don't remember that. And so Paul is saying that we must dress properly, put on truth. He wants you to know that. Gird your loins with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness. Having done that, because the truth that you put on in your loins will cause you to live righteously. It was me. Let your mind be transformed in righteousness, and therefore your behavior will conform to that. Verse 15, and having fitted your feet with the preparation of good news of peace. Above all, having taken up the shield of belief, with which you shall have power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. So when Satan throws his fiery darts at you, it matters not, because you're correctly dressed. And you can say it is written, even as Yeshua did. But when you don't have the truth and you're scrambling for an answer, and you're down there in the trenches with other people, and you don't know what your commanding officer at the headquarters is saying, you're in trouble. You must dress correctly, because never at any time must you assume that the war has ceased. There's no ceasefire for 6,000 years. There has not been a ceasefire. Of course, Satan will show you a white flag and have you believe that there is a ceasefire, but that's just part of his structure. That's part of his trickery. There is no ease up. And moreover, the word says he knows that his time is short, and he's doubling his efforts to make sure that you lose out as he has already lost out. And so when you tell me that you're a Baptist, you've missed the point. When you tell me that you're an Episcopalian, you're shooting wide. When you tell me that you're Seventh-day Adventist and you're a Catholic and you're a Jehovah's Witness, you have missed the point. You missed the point. You have well missed that point. Because as I indicated, Yah has always had one group of people called Israelites. He called Abraham and he said, Abraham, I'm going to use you to make an example so that other people will understand. I want you, and he said that in, chapter 28. We read that the other day in Genesis. He says, you are going to be an assembly. You're going to be what? An assembly, Abraham. You're going to be that. And so Abraham at Isaac, and Isaac continued that situation. Jacob came along and he changed his name to Israel. And so the descendants of Jacob, hear me, most of them are born where? In Africa. He says they went down, 75 of them went down to Egypt, and by the time they were coming up, they were what? Nearly 3 million people. They were born in Egypt. But he says they were Israelites. And so when I hear the evangelicals and even the British, through the Balfour Agreement in 1948, saying such and such and such a person is a Jew, not according to the word. The word doesn't say that. You are not a Jew because you were born in Israel. It's not a political entity. It's not a geopolitical entity. And that's what the evangelical world have missed. And so they conclude that at the end of time, there will be a secret rapture. And the church will disappear, in that the church will not go through this time we call the time of Jacob's trouble, the tribulation. They say, no, it won't. In fact, they then say that after the church has disappeared, the Jews will evangelize the world and they will be saved. They will be given a second chance. That's what they say. Deception, deception, deception. Come with me to the book of Acts, chapter 7. You know the story very well. This is Deacon Stephen. He's addressing an issue here. And the Apostle Paul was there watching at the time. Let's go to verse 36. Stephen is giving them or reminding them of the history of Israel. What happened to his forebears? He said, he led them out of Egypt and performed wonders and signs in Egypt. That's what Yah did. At the Red Sea and for 40 years in the wilderness. This is the Moshe who told the Israelites, Yah will raise up for you a prophet like me from your own people. That's Deuteronomy 18:15. Listen to what he said. He says, he was in the assembly in the wilderness. In some translation, it said he was in the church in the wilderness. Stephen is letting you know the church was always in the wilderness, not just started in Acts chapter 2. The church was in the wilderness all the way when they left Egypt. Yah has always had one group of people. He himself said it. He says, other sheep I have who are not of this fold of Israel, but the Gentiles who are out there, if they want to be saved, they have to come into Israel. He doesn't save anybody else except Israelites. But I want you to know, and I will emphasize the point, the Israel of Yah, according to Galatians 6 and verse 16, is not a geopolitical entity. It is people who believe in Yeshua and who seek after the Lamb wherever he goeth. And so it is not only wrong, but it is almost asinine to think that Israel is a people who do not accept but have rejected the Messiah. It's foolish. So he goes on to say, this is Stephen, that they are Israelite because Yeshua was with them in the assembly in the wilderness. He was at Mount Sinai. And he said, and with our ancestors, and he received the living words to pass on to us. Moses received the living word to pass on to us. But our ancestors refused to obey him. They did what? They refused to obey him. Instead, they rejected him, and their hearts turned back to Egypt. Their hearts turned back to Egypt. In Yohanan 10 and verse 16, Yeshua says, and other sheep I have, which are not of this fold, then also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and they shall be one fold and one shepherd. Let me say this. Let me say this. So those of you who continue to say, oh, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. Oh, I'm a Pentecostal. Oh, I'm a Wesleyan. I'm a Lutheran. I am Wesleyanist holiness. And we put those pious labels on our institution, and we think we have arrived. No, that's not what he said. He says, all of you, you are members of one body, and you remain in that body if you are obedient to what the head is saying. If the head is separating from the body, then it's dead, like Sardis. And that's why he comes to you as a thief in the night. We have got to understand that. Now, if you find yourself in that situation where you are assigning yourself a denomination or an institution saying you're that, this, what I'm about to read, should trouble you to the extent that you should be driven back to the word of Yah. Come with me to Jeremiah chapter 31. Jeremiah chapter 31. And we will begin at verse 31. Behold, look, it comes with an imperative. You get that? Behold, the days come, saith Yah, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Now, hold it there. So you say you are not a Jew and you're not an Israelite, but you're a Gentile. He said, my covenant that I am making is with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. And there is no salvation without a covenant. So where do you stand, church? Or maybe I should say denomination. Not according to the covenant I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. It's not that kind of a covenant, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them. We talked this morning about marriage. Here it is. He likens the marriage to the relationship that he has with Israel. And that's why when he spoke to Hosea, he said, Hosea, go and marry an adulterous woman. Let me break there because perhaps you're not getting it. We read earlier in Revelation chapter 12 that this woman, this virgin daughter, hear me, that was depicted in Isaiah as Miriam, gave birth to a son we call Yeshua, Israel. How then would this woman produce so many other children unlike the first son? How? What happened to her? What happened to this woman? And he's letting you know, because you strayed, I'm going to make another covenant with you. Are you with me? But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith Yah, I will put my law in their inward parts and write it on their hearts, and will be their Yah, and they shall be my people. He said, I don't want a chest anymore. I'm not going to make a chest and put my laws on tablets of stone, and so you carry it around and perhaps get it lost, even as the Philistine stole it. No, I'm going to put it in your heart. And let's say you dismiss that which Jeremiah is saying. Come with me to Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 16. This is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, saith Yah. I will put my laws in their hearts and in their minds, and will I write them up on their hearts. So we see it again. And let's go to Hebrews chapter 8. And let's begin at verse 8. For finding fault with them, he saith, behold, the days come, saith Yah, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. So you belong to the church, and you gave yourself a name. You say you're not an Israelite. Not according to the covenant I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt. You notice what I'm doing? I'm emphasizing the point. Because they continued not in my covenant. Did you get that? And I regarded them not, said Yah, for this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, said Yah, I will put my laws in their minds and write them in their heart, and I will be to them as Yah, a Yah, and they shall be to me a people. I have read to you 3 different texts. And Yah is letting you know that he's only going to make a covenant with the house of Israel. So this should trouble you somewhat. And that's why I said earlier that it's not enough just to be born in the land of Israel. Because all these people are ancestors. They were not born in Israel, but they became Israelites. It is this prescription of the distinction that comes with the conviction. Your country, your kingdom is at war. It's at war. And shall I not remind you also again what Romans 2:28-29 says? For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew which is one inwardly. And circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of man, but of Yah. I mean, how simple. And we're just trying to make simple that which is complex. Israel is not geopolitical. It's not. And Yahweh, as always, had a place, a people. And so when they pick up people from Europe and brought them and placed them in Israel, the land of Israel, and say, these are Israelites, it's like picking me up and picking you up and take us to Beijing and say, these are Chinese. No. The word wants us to know that this is nothing more than a dialectical variation. That's what it is. We get involved in semantics. Who is an Israelite and who is not? Who is a Jew and who is not? The word is very clear who is a Jew. If you be in Yeshua, you are an Israelite. And Abraham is your father. If you're not, then somebody else is your father. And that's when you know that the principality is controlling the what? The municipality of your government. That may well be your life and your home or your family. Understand that. And so we must look at this thing that we call Israel. Yes, because they have messed us up. Yes, insidiously, they have named people who don't belong to Israel to be Israelites. And so they are living obliviously to the light. And it almost becomes idiocy because they do not understand the word of Yah. They don't. And so they send support. What kind of support? Indiscriminately to a people to prolong this 6-day war on earth. You didn't hear me. It says when Satan, the devil, was cast down. Where was he thrown down? To the earth. You think he's going to stop fighting? No, he continues the war on earth. He's Prince of Darkness, and our Prince is Prince of Peace. See the distinction? One seed against another. There will be conflict unfolding until the Prince of Peace comes. So those who are writing on treaties and agreement, this accord and that accord, in vain they write. Because the one who controls the world is Satan, and he wants no peace. We've got to understand that. So come with me to, again, the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation, and we will take a look at chapter 7 of the book of Revelation. John here writes, he's on the island of Patmos. This is a Roman province, and he's put in prison for the truth. I mean, yes, he's put in prison for the truth. He's in isolation because the Emperor Domitian could not deal with the veracity of the word. He could not deal with what John was saying, and John was fearless. John writes, and after this I saw 4 messengers standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on the tree. And I saw another messenger coming up from the rising of the sun, holding the seal of the living Elohim. Did you hear me? The war is intensifying. And Yah now must seal his people before Satan do his dirty work or complete his dirty work. John here writes, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 messenger to whom it was given to harm the earth and the sea, saying, do not harm the earth, nor the sea, nor the trees, until I have sealed the servant of our Elohim upon the foreheads. Don't do that. I have some people down there who have remained faithful for me. They are called the remnant. Keep them and don't touch them yet, because I want them to be sealed. I'm going to seal them so that it's like putting them in Noah's Ark or putting them in Goshen while the plagues are coming. Seal them. And I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000, sealed out of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Did you hear that? They were sealed according to tribes of the churches. Is that what he said? No. He's only going to seal and save Israel. He didn't say they're going to be sealed and come out of the tribes of the churches or the denomination or the institution. You have to come into Israel by way of practice to be sealed. You're still a Gentile? You better think again. Let's read it again for emphasis. And I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000, sealed out of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Of the tribe of Yehuda, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Reuben, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Gad, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Asher, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Naphtali, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Manasseh, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Shimon, or Simeon, 12 tribes were sealed. Of the tribe of Levi or Levi, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Yishakar, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Zebulun, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Joseph, 12 tribes were sealed. Of the tribe of Benjamin, 12,000 were sealed. And this I looked and saw a great crowd, which was no one could count, no one could number it, out of the nations and the tribes of the people and tongues, standing before the throne before the Lamb, dressed in white robes and palm branches in their hand. Now, understand what's happening here. These 144,000, they represent the first fruits. The nations who come now, they are the harvest, the greater harvest. But these 144, they are the creme de la creme in righteousness. And if you understand the wave sheaf, if the wave sheaf is not right, there is no harvest later on. This is why when Yeshua rose that morning and they saw him on Sunday morning, he was the wave sheaf. And he told Mary, he said, don't touch me because I've not yet ascended to my Father. My Father must examine me and see that the work that I have done was okay. And thereafter, things will happen. And he went up. And then he came back and showed himself to the disciples. And thereafter, after 40 days, he said, you don't leave Jerusalem, tarry in Jerusalem. And 10 days after he left, we had the Feast of Pentecost. That's what we call, that's the innumerable number that John saw. That is just a periscope to look at this. We've got to understand that because the war is declared against Satan. So I don't understand then if the war, your country, your kingdom has declared war against Satan's kingdom, why you would be wearing a Babylonian garment. I don't understand it. Why? You might be mistaken as being on the wrong side and be shot at. This is why Paul is letting us know, put on the whole clothes, the whole armor. Don't dress like a Babylonian. Because the holy women, they did not do that. Get truth first. Gird your loin. And then put on that. When you have truth, you can walk upright and dressed and, and then you put on that helmet of salvation. That's the intellect. Put it on. But oftentimes I see people in the street and I'm looking at the corner of my eye to really see whether this is a Babylonian or whether they're Israelites. And they will tell me, no, I'm a Baptist. And I'm saying, did you not read the word? It didn't say any Baptists were sealed. It didn't say any Pentecostals were sealed. It did not say any Adventists were sealed. Yet we're all Adventists because we're waiting for the second coming. He says, I'm going to make a covenant with the house of Judah and the house of Israel. Now, let's look at that. The house of Judah and the house of Israel. I said earlier that the sons of Joseph is a son of Rachel and Jacob. Ephraim and Manasseh were born in what? Egypt, North Africa. And when Jacob, in chapter 48 of Genesis, was about to pass, he blessed them and said, your name is Israel. He said that. And oftentimes you read the scriptures, Israel corporately is depicted as Ephraim. You're Israel. Judah is the fourth son of Leah and Jacob. He was born in Padam Aram, modern day Turkey. None of them born in Israel. Hear me? So North Africa, Israel, and Padam Aram, Judah, I make a covenant with them. And we have people in Israel, in the land of Israel, saying, we are the Israelites. Really? Really? Are you in Yeshua? You're waiting for a secret rapture? Come on. That is not what the word says. Come with me to Revelation 12. And let's read verse 17. It says, and the dragon was enraged. He's wrathful with the woman. With who? Israel. Who is Israel? As I just said. Not the Israel, geopolitical Israel. Not geographic Israel. It tells you. Let's read it again. And the dragon, that's Satan, was wroth with the woman Israel, the Israel of Yah. Galatians 6:16. And he went to make war. He's a warrior. He went to fight. That's why he sent Goliath after David. He went to fight with the remnant. These are us. The seed of the seed. The remnant of the seed. Those who guard the commandments, those who keep the commandment and the feast days of Yah, and possessing the witness of Yeshua, HaMashiach. Who is Israel? Those who keep the commandment and have the testimony of Yeshua. Who is Satan angry with? Those people. But it will have you believe that you're something that you're not. Just like he did. Oh, I'm going to exalt my throne above the Most High so that the other angels could think that I am he. He's going to do it again. Come with me to 2 Thessalonians. 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 3. What does Paul says? What does Paul says he will do again? Paul says, verse 2, not to become easily unsettled in mind or troubled either by the Spirit or by the word or by a letter as it from us. And if the day of Yeshua has come, it's not that yet. Paul says, don't get all bothered and autumn of the color, believing that we here have sent a letter to you and the day of Yah has already come. Because that was being taught then, that the day of Yah has come. Oh, yes. Let no one deceive you. Let how many people? No one deceive you in any way, because the falling away, the apostasy of the church must come first. Let no one deceive you in any way, because the falling away is to come first, and the man of lawlessness is to be revealed, a son of destruction. You hear that? Satan is going to impersonate, influence, indwell this man of perdition. And what's going to happen? Who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called Elohim, or that is worshiping, so that he sits in Elohim, in the Mishkan of Elohim, in the temple of Elohim, showing himself to be Elohim. He's going to try and present himself as if he is Yah, and the people, some of them will believe. Oh, yes. He's going to try it again, but this time he's going to be more successful. The first time he tried it, they threw him out and he fell on the earth. And we have caught hell down here because of him. But now that he knows that his time is very short, he's going to try it again and sit in the temple of Yah. And so one of the preeminent things that is being thought of now in the land of Israel is to build the third temple, according to how they've understood Ezekiel chapter 40, reading all the way to the end, that the third temple will be rebuilt. And in that, they will start animal sacrifice. My question to you and to them is, if you are going to start sacrificial system again, can the blood of bulls and goats appease for your sins? And what happened to that lamb that John the Baptist saw in chapter 1 and verse 29? Where is the lamb? Isaac asked. And John the Baptist answered the question, there is the Lamb of Yah who come to take away all the sins of the earth. And you are going to start that again? Why? Is it because of ignorance? Is it because of insolence? Are you so impudent that you cannot see the perspicuity of the word? That there is only one lamb, and he offered himself once and for all people. Wow. It's mind-boggling. I am flummoxed by this, that people would go to that length. As we have said before, when you are immersed in a dye, you take on the quality of the substance within which you have been immersed. So when I went down into the water and was immersed in Yeshua, surely I must take on the qualities of Yeshua, because that in itself is at war with Satan. How then can I dress like him? And they call it sometimes Halloween. And they follow in to Halloween. Wow. I just cannot believe. And there are those who would say, these things will not happen. We are mere just the collocations of atoms. And things just evolved. And there was a big bang. That's what they say. But Stephen said, no, there was a church in the wilderness. It didn't start in Acts. No. One church. And all the denominations are members of that one body. You remain a member when you obey Yah. Anytime you disobey Yah, you dismember yourself. What then is it that we're not understanding? Let's remind ourselves. Come with me to Shemot. Shemot chapter 19, that's Exodus. We too are on an Exodus. And we're going to look at verses 5 and 6. Now, therefore, remember, they're coming out of Egypt. They're coming out of North Africa. You know, it's almost as if sometimes people are afraid to say Africa. You know, because when we talk about Egypt, we don't talk about Egypt as if it's Africa, our homeland. Now, therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, what? Remember, these people are just coming out of slavery. But he has a covenant waiting for them, because he can't save them without a covenant. He liberates them, then he tells them how to live. He emancipates them. If you obey me and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. I will do what? I will make you more adorable, more special, more circumspect than all the Gentiles. That's the other, the unbelievers. For all the earth is whose? You didn't hear me. He says, all the earth is mine, including the land of Israel. And the land must not be sold, because the land must be prepared for the true Israelite when I bring them home. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests. Have you ever heard priests fighting wars? It says war started in heaven. You know, sometimes when I hear people die and they say, oh, he is in heaven now. I say, is they fighting? Because the word says it's fighting in heaven. I don't think it's the heaven, the third heaven where Yah dwell, but the word says in mid-heaven, there's fighting. It's fighting. So when we see a hot spot on the earth, as we have seen over the last few weeks in Gaza, it's an indication. It's indicative of the fact that the war in mid-heaven has stepped up somewhat. We've got to understand that. What's in the celestial world cast a shadow on the terrestrial world. That's what we're seeing in Gaza. We must understand that. So he said, I want you to be a kingdom of priests. But watch what Satan does subtly. Satan has allowed men to write footnotes into the Schofield Bible. I think it was printed in 1909. And that Bible has promoted the idea that there would be a secret rapture, and that the church would not go through a persecution. And so the evangelicals have been promoting that and have been deceived. You can't tell them that because they get angry. So come with me to Revelation chapter 14. Revelation chapter 14. And I look. You see, John is not like us, is he? Sometimes we go places and say, what did you see? Well, I didn't see anything. John says, and I looked. And I saw a lamb. He saw what? A lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having their father's name written in their foreheads. Who is our father? Yeah. And they had what written? Yahweh, not Lord, not God, not Jesus, their father's name written in their forehead. And I heard a voice out of the Shemaim, the heavens, like a voice of many waters, and like the voice of a loud thunder. And I heard the sound of harpists playing their harps. And they sang a renewed song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders, and no one was able to learn the song except the 144,000 who were redeemed from among men. Did you hear that? Meaning they were They experienced part of the tribulation. They were redeemed from among men. They are those who were not defiled by other women. Listen to me. If Israel is the true woman, and I don't mean, and I can't overemphasize this point. When I say Israel, I'm not talking about Israel, geopolitical Israel. I'm talking about Israel, the people who accept Yeshua as their personal savior. He says that they were redeemed from among the earth. These are they who were not defiled by other women, other countries, other churches, because the church is depicted as a woman. Jeremiah chapter 6 and verse 2. I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely and delicate woman. So they were not deceived by other denominations. For they are maidens, they are virgins. They are those following the Lamb wherever he goes. They were redeemed from among men, being first fruit, I said it earlier, to Yahweh and the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no falsehood, for they are blameless before the throne of Elohim. And I saw another messenger flying in where? Mid-heaven. That's where the war is. Holding the everlasting good news to announce to those dwelling on the earth, even to every nation and to tribe and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, revere Elohim, worship Elohim, and give esteem to him, because the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made the Shemamim and the earth and the sea and the fountain of water. And another messenger followed, saying, Babel has fallen, and that great city, because she has made all the nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her whoring. And then the third messenger followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worship the beast, if you worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark upon the forehead or upon the hand, he also shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Yahweh, which is poured out undiluted into the cup of the wrath, and he shall be tortured with fire and sulfur before the Kodesh messengers and before the Lamb. Did you hear me? This is what Yah is saying to his people. So when we say that there is war in the heaven, I am simply saying heaven has declared war against the kingdom of Satan. You know, oftentimes when you hear a country is at war with another country, they would send notices out to the people living in the war zone saying, you better leave by such and such a date, because we cannot be responsible now for you if you remain in the war zone. Leave Gaza, leave Ukraine, wherever the war is. Come out, because we want to maintain your safety. Yah is doing that. He said, don't do anything yet. Let me seal them in. I will seal them in. Don't touch anything yet. And we are saying, no, I'm a Gentile. No, he's only sealing Israelites. Did you get that? Not Baptist, not Lutheran, not Wesleyan. That's not what he's doing. Not at all. So don't be delinquent, disloyal. No. Come. He says, come. And we're hesitant like Mrs. Lot. Because you know why we're like Mrs. Lot? Because we have a lot. And we don't want to leave the lot that we have. And Yah is letting you know, I have a lot more because everything belongs to me, Mrs. Lot. But the word said she looked back and she became sodium chloride. The Bible says a pillar of salt. She became exactly what we were supposed to be, a salt of the earth. But she became a monument and not a movement. And so the animals, the cattle went each day and they licked the monument. May we take note, because as I said, this is a gradual but deliberate reduction. Satan is trying to wear out the saints of the Most High. That's why I said it's a war of attrition that is being fought between heaven, the kingdom of heaven, and the kingdom of Satan. That's what is happening. Satan is trying to annex all the churches together and all the people to join his wicked and evil angels. And Yah is on a mission to liberate us. Put it succinctly, that is the great controversy of all the ages. One is trying to enslave you, and the other is trying to liberate you. Because when you know the truth, this truth, it is the same truth that sets you free. In Yeshua's name we pray, and let the church say hallelujah.